And I'm Matt Hanna.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas,
where we talk about all your favorite scary movies.
In the wise words of Bodies, 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 today's episode is a podcast about hanging out with your smartest and funniest friends. Today's episode features our good friends Sarah and David from the podcast Paranormal in Pennsylvania. And today we are covering the movie Annabelle. So,
you said that line last time we had a guest.
Yeah, I'm going to do it every time because that's the adorable quote possible. But hi, Sarah. Hi, David. Feel free to jump in and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Sarah. Thank you for having us. I'm so excited about this podcast.
And I'm David. And thanks for having us.
Do you want to tell our listeners what your podcast is about real quick?
Sure. We are two of the three co-hosts of Paranormal in Pennsylvania, and we discuss history and hauntings, specifically in Pennsylvania, but a few times we venture outside to other states. So tune in. We're on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast.
Welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania, where we discuss history and hauntings. In each episode, we answer the question, are we brave enough to visit these places of paranormal phenomena? Follow us on Instagram for updates and pictures of our adventures at Paranormal in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so we thought you'd be the perfect guest because we have some spooky overlap as well as just being friends, period. We're definitely very excited to have you, and I think we're all going to have some interesting takes on this one.
But before we do that, we should talk about their horror background beyond the podcast.
Yeah,
so we want to ask,
do it.
I guess we'll ask both of you, what are your favorite scary movies? Or your number one favorite scary movie?
So I'll go first because David is not actually a scary movie fan. For my birthday a few years ago, he went to see Insidious with me in theaters as my birthday gift, and he wore noise-canceling headphones. So he's not a huge fan, but he did agree to watch Annabelle with me for this. I think my favorite horror movie, I have two. I really like 13 Ghosts because I like the premise of it, and I watched it when I was little, and I feel like it imprinted on me. The other movie that I like, which is not super common, is called 9 Dead, and it's more thriller than horror, I would say. It kind of gives vibes of Saw, where they have to all figure out why they're in the house. And the premise of 9 Dead is someone dies every hour until they figure out why they're all there. So you get less information every hour because you lose a person.
I've never heard of 9 Dead, and now I would like to watch it.
Okay,
you should.
My other question is 13 Ghosts. Are we referring to the 60s one or the 2000s one?
Oh, let me see. I didn't realize that there was a remake. It's 2001 is the version I'm talking about.
Okay.
I've seen only bits and pieces of that one.
Reviews, so that's funny. I'm excited to watch it.
I mean, it has Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, so how can you go wrong?
Well, we fucking love Matthew Lillard, so instant in for me.
And so, David, do you want to throw a favorite scary movie out there, or are you just going to say...
Yeah, so to be clear, the type of scary movies that I'm not big fans of are movies where I can't fight back. So a Paranormal Activity where it's just happening, there's not really a fight back, you just kind of lose. Those kind of movies, not my real cup of tea, I guess, when it's demons and such. But that being said, I think kind of one of my favorite franchises is The Collector. Well, so it's two movies. The first one's called The Collector. The second is called The Collection. And it's a very interesting premise where it's a thriller movie where a man goes around and collects interesting people.
I don't think I've ever heard of that one either.
Yeah,
so
you guys are throwing us curveballs. I feel like.
Well, now we have your backgrounds, though, so I guess we can jump into some Annabelle background before we do our summaries.
So, Annabelle came out in 2014. It's directed by John Leonetti and written by Gary Dauberman. Could be pronouncing that wrong, but it's very interesting. Since Annabelle is a part of the Conjuring universe, it's just interesting to look at the reviews of the movies versus who wrote and directed them. So the first Conjuring and The Conjuring 2 are written by James Wan or directed by James Wan, written by Chad Hayes and Carrie Hayes. And the reviews are very different, and I'd say my experience as a viewer for those two movies are very different, but I do think it's important to note that the production team behind them.
So you're saying The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2 both had better reviews?
Duh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought you meant that they both had different reviews, The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2.
No, they had
good
reviews.
Got it. And Annabelle did not.
Annabelle doesn't. And I can feel the difference in, like, the writing team and the directing team being different.
I also hate the fact that you had to say the Conjuring Cinematic Universe, and that there is one. I know. I hate that. I hate that that's a thing.
Yeah, the Conjuring universe has like 3 Annabelle movies, 3 Conjuring movies, maybe more.
And
I don't
2
know.
Nun
We haven't
movies.
seen them all. Oh yeah, the Nun movies too. I think either the guy who directed or wrote all of the Annabelle movies also did the Nun. So
makes sense.
And that. So on Paranormal Pennsylvania, I know you guys will talk about the history of the hauntings, or like the history and background, and then you'll go into like the hauntings that happen there. Are you guys familiar with the Annabelle case at all?
Yeah, I am. I love reading about Ed and Lorraine Warren
Me
stories,
too.
so I was familiar.
But this movie had nothing to do with the actual Annabelle case, right? Because that was all covered in the first Conjuring. So this was all, am I incorrect saying this was all made up?
You're correct. It's all made up.
Which is so infuriating, because that's why we picked this, because we thought it fit both of our niches really well to cover something that is based in quote-unquote history, but it's not. So the real Annabelle doll, right off the bat, was like a Raggedy Ann doll, not this porcelain ugly thing. The real Annabelle doll was given as a birthday present to a nurse named Donna for her 28th birthday, and the doll was likely purchased new, so it didn't have any other owners prior to her, so this whole story of them being the first owners is bullshit. And then when it comes to the actual hauntings, Donna and her roommate Angie had reported that they would come home to find the doll in different positions, and at first it was like subtle, but over time it became more noticeable, and they would find the doll in completely different rooms, or in rooms where they had like left the door closed, and then she'd be in the next room. They sometimes would find it with its legs crossed or arms folded. Once they discovered it kneeling on a chair, which then they would like try and make the doll kneel, because they were like, that's weird, it's like floppy, I don't think it can do that. And they wouldn't be able to make it kneel on its own, but then like they would come and find it like that. And according to Ed and Lorraine, Donna and her roommate would also come home to penciled messages written around the home on paper, things like help us. And according to Ed and Lorraine as well, in their writing, they had indicated that Donna and her roommate had come home from work to find blood on the doll's hand and on its chest, and there was no explanation for that, and that is what originally prompted Donna to ask for help. And so all of that was covered in The Conjuring in about an excellent 15-minute intro to that movie, or maybe even less. Yeah.
So that was all covered, and they decided, let's go back and add some bullshit story to it to make this movie.
Which is really funny, because like The Conjuring is very much built on being the true story.
Mm-hmm. And then they show all that. Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, great, let's make another film in this universe that we're just going to be making up entirely.
And Sarah and David, I'm sure you haven't seen The Conjuring, but Sarah, have you?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
They do much more justice to the story than this movie.
Yes,
I was so disappointed.
I find that movie to be very excellent, and especially that like opening scene to just be so good. So yeah, I mean, we could jump into just saying like, yeah, I was not looking forward to watching Annabelle because I had a feeling it was not good, but I did not realize all of it was bullshit compared to at least The Conjuring. And my expectations were met with it being kind of dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that it's not even, I guess it's somewhat loosely based I don't know, but
Not
that feels
even.
like even a stretch. Yeah, like it's just like none of it really. Like getting blood on the doll was the only thing that even connects it to the original story, right?
I'll say I have a theory about this movie, and it's that someone was writing a paranormal house thriller, whatever this is, and after the success of The Conjuring, someone was like, "Oh yeah, you can make that movie, but it needs to be an Annabelle movie." Came in, gave them like a contract to make an Annabelle movie, so they just combined the scripts. That's completely baseless, but that's what it felt like to me.
I could see that for sure because it felt like this could have been a Goosebumps movie with their haunted puppets. It could have been any standard doll movie.
Completely agree. And they actually step away from Annabelle for a big portion of this movie, and it becomes more about that cult and the cult of the Ram or whatever, and that demon running around. Like, really, Annabelle doesn't do much. Most of the scares don't have to do with her.
Yeah, I was really surprised the first time that I saw the demon because I guess I'm not an expert on haunted dolls, but in my knowledge of them, there's not something else that manifests. It is the doll that's haunted. So you wouldn't see anything else. And I think, the doll moving and stuff and being in the background, that made a lot of sense. But the demon, especially in the scene in the basement, it was like, this is a completely different film.
I felt that way too. And Hannah, how'd you feel?
I didn't expect, like you said, I didn't expect much going in, and I didn't get much either. It did, there were a couple points in time that scared me more than I thought they would, but I think it's hard to even enjoy those scares when the rest of the movie was what it was, and when, again, in a franchise about stories that are real, to have something so bullshit was so frustrating.
We should say real in quotes.
Yeah, really. I mean,
because there is a lot of thought that Ed and Lorraine were kooks.
Yeah.
But they're fun. They're great, compelling characters.
They are, and that's what makes The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2, and we haven't seen the third one, but that's what makes those two movies work so well. It's not only are the scares well, written, well produced, but you also have the heart of the two of them at the center, and I don't feel like this movie has any heart.
Yeah, I kept expecting to see them pop up on screen of it's escalating. They go to the church. Okay, where are Ed and Lorraine in this story about them?
They're only involved in the movies titled The Conjuring. So they're not involved at all in The Nun. They're not involved, I think, in any of the Annabelle movies.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, these are cash grabs.
Oh, wow.
They're just trying to, I don't know what they're called. If it's called Annabelle, a Conjuring story or some bullshit like that, but
it's literally.
But they did allude to them in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Where the people that they were going to call out east.
Yes, they did allude to them. They're just not in it. This movie couldn't afford either of them.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, this movie is dog shit.
I know. I'm trying to hold off till we get to general thoughts, but
okay. I'll hold off.
I want to unload on this movie, but I first want to do our 15-second summaries. Yeah.
So every episode we do 15-second summaries where each person gets their turn, time, and you'll have 15 seconds to describe this movie. You don't have to use all 15 seconds, but you can use as much of it as you want. So I thought it would be fun for David to start us off with his 15-second summary.
Do you have the timer up for him?
I do.
We also give you no prep for this, so Hannah's going to hit start and you just got to go.
All right, ready? And go, David.
When a wife who really wants to love her child, but chooses a doll that's haunted every step of the way, this movie brings you all the worst of The Conjuring.
That's it. Good time.
Did you read that off something? Or did you make it up?
Made it up on the spot.
Okay.
The voice was
great.
really, it was doing
I was trying to go for that movie trailer vibe,
I could tell.
Yeah, you nailed it. I won't try that hard because I'll panic.
Do you want Sarah to go next?
Yeah, Sarah.
Are you ready, Sarah?
Yep.
All right, Hannah will tell you when.
Go.
Okay, a pregnant woman gets a doll from her husband that turns out to be haunted. People break in and try to kill her, and then the doll proceeds to also try to kill her and her daughter.
Done.
There we go.
All right, Matt.
Am I up?
Yeah. Go.
Yeah, a film corporation decides that they want to make a needless cash grab and made this movie with the Conjuring name on it, and it was dog shit.
I'm so mad.
Is that what you were going to say?
I was going to say something really similar. My summary was just going to be, this movie shouldn't exist. And that was it.
Well, you just said it. So
yeah. Well, you guys nailed it.
No, my summary really was like, why was this made?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had an episode where we genuinely disliked a movie so far.
We're not hiding it.
And we've done it. We finally did it.
We are now going to go through a detailed summary of the movie. Content warnings for this film include depictions of suicide. In Santa Monica, California, John, a doctor, presents his pregnant wife Mia with a rare vintage porcelain doll as a gift for their first child and is meant to be placed in a collection of dolls in their daughter's nursery. That night, the couple is disturbed by the sounds of their next-door neighbors, the Higgins, being murdered during a home invasion. While Mia calls the police, she and John are attacked by the Higgins killers. The police arrive and shoot one killer, a man, while the female killer slits her throat inside the nursery while holding the doll. News reports identify the assailants as the Higgins' estranged daughter, Annabelle, and her unidentified boyfriend, both members of a cult. In the days following the attack, a series of paranormal activities occur around the residence. Afterwards, Mia gives birth to a healthy baby girl, Leah. The family rents an apartment in Pasadena, and after finding the doll that John had discarded after the previous attack in one of the boxes, another set of paranormal events plague Mia and her daughter. Mia calls the detective to gather information about Annabelle and the cultists and learns that the cult intends to summon a demonic spirit. With the help of bookseller and fellow tenant Evelyn, Mia realizes that the cult practiced devil worship, which summoned a demon who followed the family after they moved to their apartment, so as to claim a soul. After returning home, Mia and Leah are attacked by the demon who reveals itself while manipulating the doll. Mia and John contact their parish priest, Father Perez, who informs them that demons sometimes attach themselves to inanimate objects as an advantage to accomplish their goals, and that a human soul must be offered for a purpose. Without any hopes of exorcising the demon out of the doll, Father Perez decides to take it away to seek help from the Warrens for investigation. However, before he can enter the church, the demon impersonating Annabelle's spirit attacks him and grabs the doll. Father Perez is hospitalized the next day, and when John goes to check on him, the priest warns him that after sensing its powerful presence, the demon's true intention appears to be to claim Mia's soul. That night, while Evelyn is visiting Mia, the demon uses Father Perez's physical form to sneak into the apartment and abduct Leah for her mother's soul. To spare her daughter, Mia attempts to jump out of the window with the doll, but John arrives in time along with Evelyn to stop her. Evelyn decides to take her life in Mia's place, instead as atonement for causing a car accident that resulted in the death of her daughter Ruby years ago. As Evelyn lies dead in the road, the demon and the doll disappear. Mia and John never saw or heard of the doll again, and Leah is safely inside her crib. 6 months later, the doll is bought from an antique shop by a mother as a gift for her daughter Debbie, a nursing student, and is seen later stored and locked away in a glass case in the Warrens' artifact room.
So we'll jump in before we unload on this thing into your hide and scream count, right?
Yeah, so the Hanna hide count was 3. Did you guys count how many times you happened to hide? Did you hide it all?
We did not hide at all. We did look to keep track, but we did not. I think mostly because we were actively discussing it and just not, scared.
I'm just a chicken shit, so I had... What scene was it that I was panic laughing?
I was going to say
hard?
the elevator.
Oh, yeah, I hit at that one a lot.
I will say I did yell, and I do think there is one very, very excellent scare in this movie.
Well, we didn't get to scream count.
I know. Oh, it's mine?
We didn't get to scream count. That was just
sorry, my bad. All right.
Dingus.
Back it up. What was your scream count then?
Yeah, scream count was 5, including both of us.
Okay, I had 1, I think. Or did I have 2?
I think you had 2 of the 5.
2. Well, I was going to say there was one very excellent scene and since I'll just start jumping into it. But I want to see what you guys thought. But it was the scene where she's staring down the hallway, and there's a little girl that stares at her, and the little girl comes running. And what happens is the door, as she gets to the door, she disappears and then grows and becomes a scary cult lady. It was the cult lady that sprints at her. And that was, I thought, fantastic. That was easily my favorite scene. We'll get to that later too. And I was like, for a moment there, I was like, you know what, maybe this was worth it. And then it disappointed me the rest of the way.
Yeah, with the door like nearly shutting. And so just as like the little girl gets to it and then bursts in as the cult lady. That was a good scene.
Yeah. We got to that and we were like, okay, we're turning this ship around. And that was after
That was after like 35 minutes of me trying to keep my eyes open. So I was like excited for once.
Yeah, we were hopeful and then our hopes went down the drain. Did you guys... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the only time that I screamed or had any outburst, and David didn't, but the only time I did, it was so interesting. It was at the murder scene in the beginning when the husband's trying to like fight off both of the attackers and he hits the guy on the head and then turns around to take care of the girl. But the guy's getting back up and going towards Mia. It was such a weird, I guess I was in the moment. I was like, David, as if I were Mia and trying to get David's attention. It was such a weird reaction. But that's the only, like, scream that I had. It wasn't, like, a scared scream. I guess kind of it was, but not a traditional horror movie scream.
And I feel like that's a good point, because that's, like, a genuinely real-life scary thing. And Matt and I always talk about how we really like the scenes that are grounded in real-life fear. I just feel like the scene just wasn't shot or written enough for me to even capitalize on my real life fear of an intruder, which I very much have.
Yeah.
I kind of actually was a little bit excited during that scene as well, because I was like, oh, I'm not really interested in a doll movie. So when it started being like about cult stuff, I was like, oh, this is fun for at least a little bit. And like I said, then it slowed to an absolute crawl until that door scene happened.
Yeah, and I did feel like it was predictable still. I don't know if you want me to dive into this yet.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
we were literally saying, like, my main thought that I wrote down is it's so predictable. There were so many times where David and I would say, oh, I bet this is going to happen next. Like, as soon as the husband went next door, I was like, they're in his house. She's going to walk back and Mia's going to get attacked. They're in the house. And that kept happening the whole movie. I'd be like, oh, the priest is going to die before he can get in the church. And it was, you know, every step of the way felt so absolutely predictable.
Yeah, but I actually predicted that the priest would very much survive, though. That the demon couldn't kill him. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wrong. He didn't die. He just got attacked.
Close enough.
So I'll say, I have no problem with the movie's predictable if it's still entertaining. This was not entertaining.
Yeah,
and
I
agree
played on
with
my
you.
phone a little bit.
It was like, you knew exactly where everything was going. And I'll also say, I think it's funny talking about the priest dying. Did a single person die until that lady threw herself out the window at the end?
No.
Well, technically, the death count was 2 at that point.
Okay, the cultists.
Yeah.
But no one from I guess the reason they didn't do this is because the demon was trying to get a soul. So, but I also felt like this movie was like cowardly in that way. There were just no stakes.
Yeah. I also I really don't like when movies use suicide as a plot device when the movie isn't doing it tastefully. It
was also like in a positive light.
And I wrote down, so is this movie saying in Frank Reynolds fashion, suicide is badass? Like
that is how it felt.
Like and we always talk about what the movie meant. We're really skipping all around, but I truly don't know. I have another theory, but literally my first thought was, is this a pro
kill yourself movie?
Yeah.
Like, and I think there are movies who use that as a part of the plot in a way that's really well done. Like, we've covered Midsommar, and I think, I don't really have a problem with it in that movie. But maybe because this movie was such a piece of shit, and I just, like, it It wasn't done well. I can't tell what the message was. It wasn't like some thoughtful telling of how you deal with grief or loss. It was just like, bye, out my window. And
Yeah.
really
Give in to demons is the message, basically.
Or sacrifice your friends and family
Yeah.
instead, not you.
That character was also barely in the movie, and then you find out like 10 minutes before that her daughter died because she fell asleep at the wheel. So now it's like, it's okay to kill myself.
They also set it up that she's had attempts before. I don't know if you caught this.
Yeah.
But she was talking, because Matt's like looking at me confused. She was talking about, or she showed her like a cut on her arm.
Yeah, the
I was
scar.
falling asleep.
And so I just like feel like that's so fucked up to be like, oh, she's already, been suicidal or had ideations in the past because of this loss. But girl, go ahead. Thank you.
Right. So, but it's one of those things that if you take away the marks on her arm, does it change the meaning? Does it change the message? And I don't think anything changes.
I just think they were so unnecessary.
Right.
Yeah.
Like having that cut, like,
It would have felt
add.
It would have felt like maybe a more meaningful sacrifice. And I know that might be kind of fucked up, but something about the fact that she is already grieving and depressed and apparently suicidal, and then just, I don't know, it
was weird.
feels
It was very
wrong
weird
to me. Just love it.
I didn't make that real connection until you brought it up, but it doesn't make sense because at the end they made it seem like she's sacrificing herself. But then with what you brought up, it muddles it and not in a good way. Ugh.
Which has to be real. Hold up. I think that it gets even worse is because like it's definitely implied like she's like killing herself to go be with her daughter. But she's giving her soul to the devil.
Yeah, she's giving it to the
She's
demon.
going to hell or whatever if that's what they believe. Yeah, she's getting tormented. Like,
Yeah.
this movie's fucked up.
Yeah, I really don't know what to do with that at all.
If we're going by movie rules,
I also, the priest talks about resilience a million times in this movie. Like, they're like, keep the doll. They're like, you have to overcome hard times, and this doll is part of your tragedy, so keep it, and it'll help you work through this crazy incident that almost killed you and your husband and your break-in. And so, like, he talks about resilience a million times, and then they're also, like, resilience, but die.
Well, so the weird thing is like he talks about resilience. Like at that point in the movie, he doesn't even know about the doll. The doll's haunted, and then he's like, no, we should like have this as a sign of strength. I'm going to keep it in my baby's room, and I'm like, okay, so you're choosing the haunted doll over the safety of your child. Great, first, great.
That's
mom.
also buck wild. Like, if you think that this doll, whether you think it's like full on haunted or just like there's something creepy about it or uncomfortable, don't put it in your baby's room, dude. Don't.
Right.
And the other thing is that like they just kind of blindly accept we can't get rid of this doll normally, but it's like you only attempt to get rid of the doll once and it reappeared. Like Occam's razor applies here, right? The most obvious thing is that somehow it made its way into a box. So now try to get rid of it a second time and make a note of it. But they're like, nope. If we throw it away, it's just going to come back.
And
It's like,
to that degree, they're already religious people. Okay, so let's say they actively believe in demons and don't take any convincing. Why would you not exhaust literally every option that you have? And I know that they give it to the priest and he gets into the accident, or he gets whatever happens to him. But why would you not keep looking? I feel like if I were to find out that I had a haunted object attached to me, I would be so exhaustive in my research of how to get rid of it. I wouldn't just throw it in the trash once and then be like, oh, it's mine now.
I'd be throwing holy water all around that room.
Right.
I feel like you're bringing up another like important point because I don't always like to argue with movie character logic because it's like,
but when all of it's
I know.
nonsense,
I'm saying it's like usually futile, but like we can say like these are just not compelling characters in the slightest. And I think this is like indicative of that, is that like I have zero, I don't care at all about either of them for any reason. I almost think if they would have killed off one of them with the cultists in the beginning, I'd have a reason to care. At least like if mom was now a single mom raising this kid, like there's something there. But no, it's like they're still together, they got their kid, and mom's having demons run around. Like I just didn't do anything for me. I was not interested in them or interested in watching. And like, if you're not going to have an interesting plot, you got to at least like bring me in with some style, which this movie also has none of. Like, it just white toast, bland ass fucking movie. Sorry, I'm angry about it. I'm mad I watched it.
But also play into the characters a bit more if you're going to develop them. For example, he's a physician, right? The only time that really came into play is that he was at the hospital when the priest was there. Mm-hmm. But other than that, play into it. His wife got stabbed in the stomach when she's pregnant. He would be so involved with that and the treatment moving forward. I just felt like multiple things were just thrown in here like, oh, also this.
Yeah, they really don't do much with it. Even they were setting up like mom's hobby is sewing. And I was waiting for this crazy ass sewing machine scare because they set that up multiple times that there was going to be something. And what did we get? We got like her pricking her finger in the middle of a random scene.
Oh yeah, they were trying to make that all tense with the
thing,
and then it ended up looking really stupid and not mattering, right?
Yeah. Like, great, glad they're playing on my already existing fear of learning to use my sewing machine, but I'm still good to use it, so you didn't scare me enough. Like,
yeah, I thought it was going to be like, because I was saying to David, like, oh, it really hurts if you like sew through your nail, you know? And I thought that was going to be the imagery, like she was going to end up, you know, in a trance and sewing through her whole hand or something. And then it's like she nicks herself on the needle.
This movie's just so cowardly all around. I feel
it felt low budget.
Half-assed everything.
Yeah, because the haunted event that happens right after the sewing needle puncture is that the chair starts rocking, right? And that's that.
No, I think it's the fire.
We can't even keep it straight because the popcorn.
Oh, you're right. It was the popcorn fire.
Oh my god, this movie sucks. I'm like getting mad thinking about it as we.
This movie had a $6.5 million budget.
So
I just wanted to put that out there.
It is cheap, but I will say a lot of horror movies are cheap, which is why they get these shit ones get made.
The first Insidious was like 1.5
million. There you go, and that's pretty good. I gave that like 6. I'm gonna sneeze. Uh-oh.
What did the Conjuring?
That's the first podcast sneeze.
Congratulations, honey, you did it.
First time for everything.
Uh-huh. The Conjuring had a $20 million budget, so I mean,
like that's cheap.
Different, but
The Evil Dead had like $100,000 budget, and it looks way cooler than this movie. It's way scarier, and like I don't know, everything about it is just better. So I don't know. I don't always think like horror movies are just low budget. That's the thing. Blumhouse they basically made their whole production company off of that. Of like, let's make them cheap because all we have to do is double our budget, and they make a profit.
Mm-hmm. So
it's easy to do, and there are good ones out there. This one really does feel like a studio said The Conjuring's successful, and they handed a script down to somebody or said, write a script here. Put Annabelle in it, and whoever wrote it just did their best.
And I think some of the scariest parts of it are low budget and along the lines of the universe, which is what sucks about it. Like, what's scary to me about the Conjuring universe is there's often things happening in the background where if you don't see them, you can still grasp the story and the scene. But if you do see them, it's an extra scare. Like when the doll was standing by the window, and if you didn't look really hard, you might have missed it. But those are the additionally scary things that I can't imagine are that expensive. It's props you already have and would really take it to the next level if they did more of that.
Yeah, maybe just lazy is the right word. Lazy writing, lazy directing. Mm-hmm. Like the actors were fine. You know what? That was one saving grace. I thought the actings, they were fine. They were not bad. I thought the dad was good. I thought he was kind of charismatic. I felt that way.
He was really there. I felt like I was watching bread toast watching him. Like
I felt that way about the whole thing, but that was just one thing that like wasn't generally like lazy at least. felt like they were trying.
I think the actors were doing the best with what they got.
Yeah, and they got very little, so that's not on them.
I do feel bad shitting on like directors and writers because I know this is definitely like corporate bullshit that got them here, but it still just like upsets me that I don't know. Sarah, I'm mad at you for making me watch it.
That's fine. You can be
You
mad at
picked
me.
this one, right?
I gave her the option.
I'm not actually mad at you.
3.
So something that I thought, and maybe you guys understood this more than I did, but something that I thought made zero sense is the demon repeatedly saying, "May God have mercy on your soul," right? Because he says it like through the radio in the priest's car. And then when it's like the presentation of the priest, but it's not actually him, the priest yells it outside their front door. I don't get that, because if you're sacrificing the soul to the devil, you're going to hell. So it doesn't matter if God has mercy on your soul. I thought that line just made no sense, and they tried to, make fetch happen with it.
That's hilarious. I didn't even catch that.
I looked at that as like, oh, he's mocking like the Christian religion, mocking your religion, like, or it is mocking. But yeah, it didn't make sense. And I was like, oh, is it just intimidation? Like, do I really need to read into this? Because you're right, Sarah, it did come up twice explicitly. So what were they getting at there? And I just don't know.
I'm like, did they just pick that because they knew it could be delivered in a scary, fun
Sounds
way?
hard.
And it's the hardest section of the Bible that they could go with. Like, I don't know. I just don't love the use of religion in this movie anyway. Period. I just feel like they pushed religion as a coping skill for so many things, which it is. Like, don't get me wrong, religion can be a great coping skill for things, but these are people who have gone through very real trauma, and they even say, I think you should talk to someone, and the next scene is her talking to a fucking priest.
Thoughts and prayers.
Therapy, queen.
Thoughts and prayers,
therapy.
Hannah, right?
You need antidepressants.
Wait, what do you mean
Hannah's
they need
like,
an
in my
exorcist?
professional opinion, you need therapy.
No, yeah. Therapy's not gonna get rid of your demon, though. This is a real demon. This is not Babadook demons.
No, I know, but there were parts... They didn't know that.
Oh, true.
I understand. Once you know that there's a demon up in there, well, that's your answer, is to go to the church. I understand that. However, there's no demon that you know of yet. You've just gone through a traumatic thing, and all you're doing is talking to your local priest who's just telling you, keep the thing that reminds you of this truly horrifying time, because it'll make you stronger.
I'm also realizing how broken my brain is because I read that as a joke when they were like, you should talk to somebody. And then the next time, like the next cut was her in church. I thought that was I don't know if it was. I read it as a joke.
In the moment, I also thought it was a joke.
But the rest of the movie makes me think that wasn't true.
Exactly. That's my issue.
And if you think of the time period, like, it was in the 60s. So everyone was religious and didn't go to therapy.
Exactly.
Right. It wasn't really much of a thing then. Yeah, I also, though, I feel like they were trying to be, I don't know, culturally relevant. Maybe that's not even the thing. Or try to establish the timeline a bit more by mentioning Charles Manson. And I don't know if I appreciate that or not.
That was definitely to set up the whole cult thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that was like a fear at the time. People thought that shit was going to happen to him. I'm sure.
What was Manson's cult name?
Manson family?
Yeah.
Okay. So then had nothing to do with, like, what were they, Disciples of the Ram?
Yes, they had nothing to do with Manson.
Nothing to do with Egypt.
Yeah. So then, okay.
Yeah, I expected them to, in blood, write Helter Skelter or something, like they were Manson fanatics, but no, just another cult. And I don't even know why they were mentioned, because it was like, oh, they're a cult. And then
I guess
an hour later, she brings the guy back and he's like, yup, they're a cult.
they had to justify that they brought the demon in. I guess, because they were saying that the cult conjured it.
By them dying or whatever. Yeah.
Well, that's what
or her killing himself.
Yeah, there was something to do with them being there and doing some ritual to bring the demon. So they're saying that because the cult did their thing, that's why the demon showed up. But that's the only relevance of the cult, besides if that lady looking freaky in a couple scenes.
Yeah, this is making me think of a big pain point for me in this movie, which is involving the ending of the movie. The doll disappears, it reappears, and it's implied that it's still very much possessed by a demon.
I was just thinking this.
However, they stated earlier in the movie that the ritual summoning requires a sacrifice for the demon to be saved. It's a contract. They are implying it's a contract. So once the sacrifice is made, contract's fulfilled, demon leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they seem to have just dropped that at the end, and they're like, nope, it's still there in case we want a sequel.
It was a new demon, and it goes to The Conjuring, I thought.
Yeah.
It's right into The Conjuring.
This is supposed to be set in 1969, and in real life, the doll was purchased in 1970. So I think this is supposed to be what happens immediately before the possession of the doll. I was going to
say, none of this actually makes sense, because I thought the explanation in The Conjuring is that the doll is not possessed, but the demon is more moving the doll and pretending. The demon's pretending to be a ghost that's in the doll, really to just get to the people in The Conjuring.
I do believe that.
So, again, I don't want to argue with the movie logic too much, but it is just it is another point of this movie just being lazy.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
I guess it's just, again, if you're gonna make a movie, especially a movie that's tying it to real life things, don't be so stupid and outlandish and completely unrooted in reality.
But they already made the movie. It was the 15-minute opening of The Conjuring. That was it.
Yeah.
We had it. We had a great Annabelle movie.
Something else we talked about is the importance of the name of demons. You see that as both in real records of possession and in stories of possession. The name of the demon is so important. And so when they come in, they break in and they kill themselves and they hold the doll, she writes an A in blood on the wall, and then the doll is named Annabelle after her, Annabelle. But when the demon burns Mia's arm in the basement scene, there's the A that shows up on her arm. And that was confusing to me because the demon is not named Annabelle.
Oh, I didn't think that was an A. I thought it was just the demon symbol. That was an A.
It's a symbol that looks like an A.
Okay.
I thought it was an A. I think there's more to it. Looks like a calligraphy A.
Yeah.
So I could buy it being, here is an A, but I could also buy it being a symbol.
I thought it was
but it's definitely just a fucking A. It is.
Oh.
Yeah, because David even said, I wonder if the name is this. And David, you'll have to jump in with the name. But I was like, no, I think that's for Annabelle.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah, I was like, is it a reference to Asmodeus or some other great demon? I don't know. But yeah, that made not a lot of sense to me. And then they found a book with that symbol, and I was like, oh, they're going to find the name of the demon since that seems to be directly related to a specific demon. Nope, nothing. Just
let's introduce a character.
That's the demon symbol.
Yeah, we were looking for threads. We were looking hard.
You guys probably hurt your brains because it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we realized pretty fast there was nothing much to analyze in this movie. And I don't think the writers tried to either. So on that note, what did this movie mean to you guys? What do you think was the point? What do you think this movie's trying to say?
So I think it's supposed to be... Yeah, well, honestly, kind of. I think it's supposed to be about sacrifice. Because that's the sermon the priest gives at the end. He's like, oh, we honor sacrifice and resilience or whatever. And that's what it kind of the message is. It's good to sacrifice yourself to save, I don't know, people you barely know.
Well, but then he also goes on to talk about how, or perhaps it was earlier in the movie where he's like, evil cannot be destroyed. It can only be contained.
Oh, do you think that's the message?
And Yeah, so I don't know. It's almost like I'm getting so many confused messages at the end.
One of my messages I wrote down that I got from it was that God loves moms. Because this whole fucking movie, the priest talks about how being a mother is like the most important thing, and he takes a picture of her and the baby, and she's like, oh, I don't need to be in it. And he's like, yeah, you do, because you're so important, and you've brought God's greatest gift, and all this shit. And then one mom sacrifices herself for this other mom to be a mom for her child. Besides that apparently we should sacrifice ourselves, it's also being a mom is tight.
I think if this movie is going for that sacrifice message, that's just so gross.
Yeah.
But personally, I think like even trying to read any subtext in this movie is giving it too much credit. I just don't know if like there's really anything meaningful there. I'm really
Probably.
I feel like I wasn't going to hate on this then. I knew I was going to hate on it. But I guess going back and thinking about it's frustrating me even more. So that's why I'm being real nasty.
Was there anything you liked about it? What did they do right?
I don't know. I feel like I said the acting was fine. There was one really good scare. I thought the elevator scare scene was good and kind of tense while she's waiting. Plays on my real fear of going down to the basement by yourself and sprinting up the stairs.
I fucking hate a basement.
Because you got to sprint up the stairs or the monster's going to grab you. You know how it works. But he stops once you get up there.
I did like, so trying to be positive, I did like the children's artwork of her and the baby being hit by a truck.
Why? Because it was funny?
It was funny. But also, that would be terrifying if you had spoken to these kids in the hallway of if I spoke to kids in the hallway of our building, and the next time I walk up the stairs, there's pictures of them, like, killing Norton and I, that would scare the fuck out of me.
True.
Norton being our dog, for those who don't know.
I thought you were saying that to us, Matt, and I was like, yes, Norton is your dog.
No, this is a podcast, Sarah. Don't forget.
The millions of fans at home need to know.
Whoa.
Yeah, those pictures were very interesting. That it's just that, you know, she thinks to like really solidify in her mind that it's after her baby because like the baby's the one that gets hit by the truck. Or I guess at this point she did think it was the kids that did that.
Well, but through possession, I don't think she thinks the kids are really imagining her getting hit by it. What I thought was a garbage truck.
Yeah, it looked like a garbage truck.
I think it was a bus, though.
Oh, okay.
Side note, if you haven't read the book, The Push, it's a thriller, and it's about a mom who thinks that her child pushed her baby's carriage into the street.
That's terrifying.
So, it is similar.
Is it better than this?
Yeah, no, it's a really good book. Highly recommend. It's called The Push. Really, really liked it. And that's what it was giving. So I guess that's probably why I liked it, because it was reminding me of something I enjoyed. I think...
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
My favorite part, I was going to say, was the writing on the ceiling, because I felt like it actually pulled from the actual Annabelle story. Because she used to leave notes, like you said, and I can imagine walking into a child's nursery and seeing that would be, you know, terrifying. So I think that was my favorite part, like that scene, and then where she starts like beating the doll and she thinks it's her baby. I liked those two together.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah. Also liked the oh my gosh, the record player incident. That was one of my jump scares because I knew it was coming, but I didn't expect it to be I think it was the cult lady that jumped out of the curtains, right? Oh no, it was the little girl that jumped out of the curtains.
Yeah.
But you saw the visage of either the woman or the demon.
Behind her, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was kind of cool.
I do like a scene like that. That actually shows up in a couple like Wan movies, because there's a scene like that in Insidious too, where behind Patrick Wilson the demon's right there. So they clearly like that imagery at this production company. What else did I even...
Well, this wasn't Wan. Oh, I say production company.
It's produced by Wan, but he's not the writer or the director.
Clearly.
Oh, when Sarah, you were talking about how the writing on the ceiling was rooted in the real haunt. Before watching, I looked for like 2 seconds as to the real haunting, and I also saw that at some point when the Warrens took the doll and they had the doll in the car with them, that they nearly got into a bajillion accidents on that car ride because of the demon with the doll in their car. And so when the priest was driving the doll, I was really anticipating something happening, since that did happen, allegedly. And I was so disappointed that that car ride was so anticlimactic, especially because they could have used what happened.
I thought so too, actually. I said to David, I bet he's going to get into a car accident. And then he pulled up to the church and I was like, but how? David also made a good point about that scene. And David, I'll like bring up the point, then you can expand. But he commented on the fact that the priest put the doll in the back seat.
I would have put that shit in my trunk. I don't want to look at that.
Yeah, right. Because my whole thought was like, if you believe that this thing is now possessed by a demon, why is it either in the front seat or in the back seat? But especially like putting it in the back seat where you can see it even less makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I either want it as far away from me as possible or in my eyesight.
Yeah. But again, this movie, giving it logic doesn't work, because this movie doesn't have logic.
We were supposed to talk about what we did like. We're back on what we don't.
Sorry, I got
Oh, man.
Sarah brought up a point that I had meant to bring up earlier, because I wrote it down. Well, the elevator scene was good. We talked about that.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it other than it just like being, the elevator kept opening, right, and they couldn't get it. She couldn't leave the basement.
I think it draws on two very real fears. One of a dark basement, because a lot of us are scared of dark basements and attics, myself included, and a broken elevator, which is terrifying. Imagining being in an elevator that's not functional. So
yeah, that was like one scene that actually like made my skin crawl a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't look at most of it.
Yeah, and I think it plays on the fear of something going wrong when you're in an emergency situation. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I have nightmares about 911 not working. And this scene felt along the same lines. Like, it's like, no, you're not functioning like you should. I need to get out of here desperately. And she like keeps hitting the button and it's not working. It felt similar lines to me.
I feel that. That's pretty funny that you have dreams about 911 not working, though.
Oh my gosh, they're terrible.
That's a new one.
Have you guys? Has no one had that dream?
I haven't had the dream, but I have called 911 and them not come. Yeah. So I don't have
what
in that in emergency services. Yeah, in the same week last September, I called 911 twice for 2 separate incidences, and they never came.
Wow, you'll have to tell me about that.
911 is good for cops showing up, shooting your dog, writing something down, and never solving anything. But that's just my opinion.
We don't need to get on our thoughts with police. It comes up in a movie. But
we always say that on our podcast. We're like, we're not here to provide social commentary, but sometimes it leaks in.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Yeah.
Well.
Ours definitely will leak. Different things are definitely going to leak in. Mental health leaks in a ton.
Feminism leaks in.
Yeah.
We'll do a little ACAB over here. I'm not afraid to say it.
The other thing I would say is I did like some of the shots where they just lingered on the doll forever and then nothing happened. But I was like waiting for something to happen or the doll to move. So the lingering shot for like 30 seconds, zooming in on a doll's face, I was like, oh fuck.
I feel like I knew nothing was going to happen because nothing happens in this movie.
Okay, after like the third time, I was like, I don't think anything's going to happen. But the first couple times, I was like, that shit do look scary. It doesn't have to move. That is just a scary doll. Side note, people who collect dolls are whack as fuck. And I don't get it. My mom recently...
Hannah, no political commentary. Come on.
This is an anti-dolls podcast. Pro Barbie, anti-larger dolls. My aunt, when she passed away, my mom got some of her stuff, and one of them was like a doll, like a porcelain doll. And she recently was like, do you want this? And I was like, no, the trash wants that. She was like, yeah, it's like, I can't throw it out. I was like, then why don't you keep it? She was like, because it scares me.
Might show back up if she throws it out.
Yeah.
See,
I don't know.
growing up, I never said I liked dolls. Like you said, I liked Barbies. I never said I liked porcelain dolls, but people just kept buying them for me.
Ooh.
And then one day when I was in high school, I looked around my room and I was like, this is scary. And I moved them all to the basement. And I had them at both of my parents' houses too. I don't know, I guess I was sending the wrong messages or vibes out there, but my parents still have a bunch of porcelain dolls that technically belong to me, but I refuse to keep in my home.
I have an American Girl doll somewhere, but I feel like those weren't as scary, and they were teaching us about history.
Those are worth money.
Yeah, I know. I have Kit somewhere in my storage.
Gotta find her. All right, I think it's time to move on to ratings and wrap it up. Unless we got anything else we want to say.
Fine with me.
How you feeling, Hannah? You want to go first?
Yeah.
We do a 10 rating out of 10 scale, Sarah and David. Super arbitrary. All ratings are bullshit. I've said it before. So
use as many
whatever you want to
decimals
say,
as you want.
you can say.
I'm gonna give it 3.4.
There you go.
I did not like it at all.
All right, let's jump to Sarah. Let's get your rating.
I'm going to give it a 3 flat because there were, I think, exactly 3 scenes that were redeemable. So it gets a point for each of those scenes.
There we go.
I just went with 0.4 because it was funny to me.
So that's funny. We'll go to me then because I was going to give it a 2 flat because I was like, oh, there were 2 scenes I liked.
Oh my god.
I honestly, I think I came in thinking I was going to give it higher, and then when we started talking about it, I got more and more upset.
For some reason, I thought I was going to give
2.
it 4, and then I was like, no.
Yep.
No.
2 out of 10.
Yeah, it's a 3. But, David?
I think I want to go like a 3.5, maybe 4.
I feel so bad that you don't watch horror movies, and
We made you
This
do
is-
it.
Watch more of like thriller movies than anything.
We'll get you on for like 7 or Shutter Island or something. That's like horror, psychological thriller, horror adjacent.
we want to find something also for them that's real. So, like, honestly, The Conjuring's good, or any of those. Amityville, good. Although I don't really like the Amityville movie.
I
but
haven't seen
that's fine.
Amityville, so we need to watch it eventually.
Okay.
But
And if Hannah loves dolls, there's a movie called Dead Silence.
I was
Would
just thinking
recommend.
that.
no.
I remember being
scared.
scared shitless of those posters when I was a kid. And the idea of that movie, there was one that burrowed its way into my brain when I was little. Dead Silence specifically, and I was so scared. It was by the trailer. I think I saw it in a theater, the trailer for it, and I was horrified. Couldn't sleep from the
I
trailer.
feel like that, the birds, and anything with aliens will be the death of me.
You like Nope? Was that a spoiler for Nope? Oops.
No.
The fourth
If people
kind.
haven't seen it by now,
True. The fourth
That's
kind,
so
I never
fun.
see that. The third kind's great, but I guess that's not horror.
I used to have nightmares about
Or
the
Close
fourth
Encounters,
kind. I would have, because I kept seeing the trailers and I'm scared of aliens, so it scared the shit out of me. And then I kept having these nightmares where I would live the scene of the trailer, and then in my dream, the next scene would be in my room. And then I wake up in the same position that I left off in my dream, just waiting for an alien presence. So we can't ever cover that, or I will never sleep again.
Yeah. Well, that being said, don't watch this movie, listeners. I don't think there's any need. This is
Yeah.
a skip.
I hope you didn't watch it. I hope you've never seen it and you listen to this for fun
Yeah.
and you've learned a lesson.
Yeah.
Or
Like
watch
it,
it and
I'm
be
so sorry.
miserable.
Yeah.
You know?
Fall asleep. I was close.
Yeah.
I was nodding off. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up. We're
Thank
good,
you
right?
both so much for joining. Again, listeners, Sarah and David have their podcast, Paranormal in Pennsylvania. It can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, so definitely make sure to check them out.
yeah, thank you so much for having us. It was great to discuss this with you guys, even though we all hated it.
Yeah, hopefully next time we'll have one that we liked the movie, but, it'd be like that. Cannot
All right.
be good. All right, see ya. Thank you for tuning into Horror Hour with the Hannas. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and follow for additional content on TikTok or Instagram at Horror Hour with the Hannas. If you like the podcast, please leave a positive review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!